So yeah, the big story of the month as we go into broad topics for the half of you that want broad topics was Jeff Jarrett winning the NWA title from Ron Killings. He defeated him on NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 22, in which Vince Russo was revealed to be Mr. Wrestling number 3.
My God.
Yeah, there was a whole story through the first 2 shows where like they were trying to reveal the identity, so Ron Killings offered Mr. Wrestling 3 a title match. Mr. Wrestling 3 did not accept that title match because they thought it was Jarrett, and then Jarrett was like, I'm not Mr. Wrestling 3, I'm not accepting this title match because I'm not Mr. Wrestling 3. Then he earned his title match by winning a tournament that kind of fell apart because Sean Waltman stopped participating in it due to injury. But again, Jarrett beat BG, and Jarrett beat Hennig in order to win his number 1 contendership and beat Killings to become world champion with the first guitar shot in TNA history, Liam.
It's an historic moment, and not from the person you think to do it.
Yeah, there are 2 guitar shots in the month of November. The first one is by Mr. Wrestling 3 to Ron Killings. And then the second one is by Jeff Jarrett to a ring post.
That's truly like all that we were talking about at the start, like the big build up to when Jarrett will finally use the guitar, and it's like, oh, he won't.
Yeah, his big guitar shot in the month of November is destroying it on the ring post because he does not want to use the guitar.
Because he's a big babyface.
It's weird. He's not. Because in Jerry's book, he literally outlines it's like all the programs he's going to work as a heel, and then he's like, oh, we can turn you face after that, and then you can be, we could run all those programs back. And then you're like, wait, he's meant to be a babyface on this show, or a heel on this show?
I don't know, maybe, it's so confusing. I don't know who's a face or who's a heel, or, like, Russo's being a fucking cunt in the ring, and then people are cheering him, and then some boo him, and then it's nothing, it's so insane, and it's hard to follow, and nothing matters.
Like, I guess you could argue Jarrett against Killings is heel versus heel, even though Ron is likable, Jarrett's not very likable, but the crowd are kind of behind Jarrett, because Jarrett cut his big babyface promo.
Yeah, Jarrett set himself up as the face for the match. And then he also didn't take the help from Mr. Wrestling 3.
Yeah, so he's, at the very least, not aligned with Russo, even if he's still a heel? I don't know. It's impossible to work out. You cannot work out.
Is Russo still a Klansman here?
Maybe, probably. Again, no way of knowing.
Yeah. This was a whole to-do, but it felt very TNA, didn't it? This is the most TNA we've witnessed yet.
Yeah, this is a very TNA month. Actually, I think the Russo promo the next week is the most TNA. TNA has TNA'd up until this point, but...
I meant the whole Russo stuff over this month and the Jarrett stuff over this month.
Yeah, it does feel like... Because, as you mentioned, when we were starting the show, when you were talking about how, like, oh, last month was your favorite month. Last month was just kind of like a normal pro wrestling month. It's just like, we'll do matches, we'll do our stories. It's a pretty normal month. There's problems with it because it's TNA, and there's never not going to be problems with it. But it did feel like there's like, let's do some straightforward pro wrestling. And now it's like, the month started with some relatively straightforward pro wrestling.
You watch it unravel throughout the month.
You do. You watch the identity of the promotion kind of slowly explode over the course of a month. So Jarrett is NWA champion, the moment that we've all been waiting for. There's actually a very interesting note in Jerry's book where he says, this show is very important because I've decided that after Jeff chasing the belt for 21 weeks, it might hurt his credibility and the company's credibility for him to continue being denied. The more interesting part of that, the fact that Panda now has a controlling interest deflects what little negative could come from Jeff being an owner and also the champion. It's interesting to see that Jerry was like, because Jeff is no longer like fully in control of this company, Panda's majority shareholder, we can make him champion without the fear that there's blowback.
You know what the funniest thing about this is?
What?
The guy that they kicked out of this company is the only person I've ever seen in charge of this company with a shred of self-awareness. Like, it's so hilarious that, like, wait, this guy's thinking about things? Get him the fuck out of here.
The fact that he's thinking about, well, you know, because Panda owns the company now, we'll get less blowback from the internet.
Perspective? What?
I'm pretty sure that's not a quality people have in spades in pro wrestling, so...
But yeah, that's why we had to get him out of there. He was thinking too much about the things that we were putting on television and trying to earn money from.
I'm legitimately stunned it took 22 weeks for a guitar shot, though. Do you think they were saving it? It's like, we're going to do the first guitar shot for the title change when Jarrett wins the belt.
Yeah, but like, then they wasted it.
They gave it to Vince Russo.
Like, you could have at least had, like, you know, Russo brings it in, Killings kicks him out, guitar's in the ring, Jarrett takes the guitar, whacks it over, Killings wins the title. That's a way more satisfying payoff than Russo limply throwing it into the back of Ron's head.
Only a few people know for sure that Russo was going to be revealed as Mr. Wrestling 3. It's mostly the people in the office. So you had like Bob Ryder, Jeremy Borash, and Mortimer Plumtree. Everyone else was worked.
That's what you got to do. Never want to build trust with your employees, alright? That's something we've got to take away from this. You never want to have trust with your employees because then that might inspire loyalty. And that's one thing you don't want in a company.
No, you never want people to be like, you know what, this is a good place to work. This is a place where I can trust my bosses and I've never left out in the cold or left out not knowing what's going on. No, you never want that. That's bad.
You want uneasiness, you want a toxic work environment, you want people to feel unsafe, you want people to think of greener pastures elsewhere because that inspires fear. And that's how you control your backstage environment.
You never want people to know they're on a sure footing. You never want people to know that what you're telling them is actually true and not some dumb shit that you're going to use to set up an angle on the TV show. Nah, you never want any of that.
Can't trust them. Remember they were leaking stuff like 2 months ago?
So they deserve this. This is what they get.
This was their punishment for stuff that Jerry was definitely doing.
You want to leak stuff? Well, we're not going to tell you anything, and you're going to be mad at us.
Yeah, and then you're going to leave.
There's even a quote in the Torch that Jarrett was pleased that wrestlers seemed to be surprised backstage.
Well, at least it worked. It'd be more embarrassing if they were trying to keep it from everyone, and then everyone still knew.
So Jarrett's champion, Russo's on the show, which really came into more relevance on the following show, NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 23, where we entered the work shoot era in full. So Mike Tenay starts the show. They cut to Mike Tenay, and Mike Tenay just does a promo about, like, this is the thing. Mike Tenay does this promo about how Vince Russo killed WCW, Vince Russo cost him his job, and he hates Vince Russo's guts. And we're telling the viewer, the person buying this show every week, that this man is responsible for the death of the second largest wrestling company in America, and now he is responsible for this company. And, like, why is the story here that the guy that's in charge is terrible?
Well, the idea here is that he's not actually in charge on camera, you know what I mean? Like, the kayfabe is that he isn't in charge. But the reality is very different, which makes the whole segment hilarious.
But, like, Vince Russo comes out after Mike Tenay threatens, and, like, if you want to know why Mike Tenay doesn't like Vince Russo, Mike Tenay was booked in a match in WCW against Madeja. Tenay refused, and because his contract said that he was an announcer and not a wrestler, they couldn't force him. But Vince Russo apparently never forgives these kind of things. But nonetheless, Mike Tenay is like, I'm not wrestling. I'm an announcer. Leave me alone.
I have no interest in smacking the back of my head against the mat a few times.
That is not a thing which is good for my brain. Therefore, I'm not going to do it.
All right, cowboy. You ready to shoot? Pew, 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 pew.
Yeah, so after Mike Tenay does his little shoot promo about how terrible Vince Russo is and how he destroys the business. My favorite part of that, by the way, is after Mike Tenay does that, they cut to Don, and Don is like, you know what, I've never met the guy. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Don doesn't pass judgment based on what other people say.
And then Mike is like, if he cost you your job, you'd know. And Don's like, you know what, that's a good point.
Also, Don's like, Mike is my friend. I will support him in his hatred of this guy.
So Vince Russo comes to the ring. Mike Tenay is meant to be doing an interview with Jeff Jarrett, and then Vince Russo interrupts him, shoves Mike Tenay out of the way, calls him bad, which is clearly the worst thing Vince Russo has ever said, is that Mike Tenay is bad at his job, because he's like the best thing on these shows.
It's also really stupid that this guy comes out here and he's like, Mike, you're bad, the show's bad, everything sucks, who would pay for this shit?
It's such a reoccurring trend through all of TNA history that all they ever do, over and over again, is tell you how terrible and bad and awful the show you're watching is.
Well, we're seeing it on the Patreon series too when we're going through the Monday Night Wars. Like, what's some of half the shit that Eric Bischoff says when he's on screen is, "Oh, the company sucked."
Everything you've watched up until we took over is utterly pointless and bad. What are you doing, you stupid idiots?
Why are you spending money on this?
even go back to the first show where like Jarrett and Hall and Shamrock came out, and it's like the creative of this show is bad. It sucks. Why are we doing this battle royal?
It's been there from the beginning, which is kind of hilarious too. That's the other biggest through line.
Like, legitimately, we're not going to put it in the show open as a noteworthy quote, but Vince Russo just says the words, "This product sucks." Those are his exact words. This product sucks.
Maybe we should put that in there, right at the end. After the Chris Rock line, where he's like, TNA is the best promotion in the world. This product sucks.
But we're actually talking about our podcast instead of...
Yeah. Yeah, that's when it says, you've got to be kidding me. This product sucks.
So Vince Russo goes full worked shoot where he's talking about the history of WCW and the history of Jeff Jarrett.
I don't even know what's worked. You know what I mean? Like, my man was just taking veiled threats at Jerry Jarrett.
Yeah, that's another one where he's like, if you cut my mic, Jerry... Jerry Jarrett's not a character on this show. Jerry Jarrett's never been on this show. Nobody who watches this TV show knows who Jerry Jarrett is. And yet, Vince Russo's like, he's threatening to smack the shit out of him if he cuts his mic. Which, to be fair, I would take that challenge. If Vince Russo's like, I'll smack the shit out of you if you do anything, I'd be like, I'll do it. You can't smack the shit out of anything.
I mean, no, we're not doing this is a fiery promo.
I'll give it to Vince Russo. It was well delivered. You can never deny him that. But the content of the promo was absolutely dreadful. Because he went through Jeff Jarrett's career where he's like, you were a nobody in the WWF, but when I got the book, I made you good. I made you a star. Then you were a nobody in WCW, and you were begging me to jump over to WCW.
Here's my promo. My promo is, I'm going to come out here. I'm going to tell you the show you're watching is bad and the promotion you're watching is bad. I'm going to tell you that the NWA World Champion is bad. Then I'm going to tell you that wrestling's fake. And then I'm going to tell you that Jeff Jarrett was bad. And then I'm going to punch an old man that you don't know.
Yeah, to be fair, threaten to punch an old man that you don't know.
Yeah. Just a cavalcade of great stuff.
It goes back to Vince Russo's like core misunderstanding of pro wrestling, though, doesn't it? His core misunderstanding of why people like this thing. Like, they want to invest in the stories and the characters and the chases for the titles. That's pro wrestling. But he constantly can't understand that, so he has to constantly tell you pro wrestling is fake. This isn't real. I'm the writer. I'm the booker. The real drama here, the real tension, the real thing that you should be interested in is the behind-the-scenes stuff, which we're going to have spill over onto the television show at all times, while we tell you that I booked this guy before and I want to book him again, and this old man backstage is stopping me from booking him again.
Well, it comes down to the core of he doesn't like pro wrestling. Like, really, what Vince Russo should have been doing was directing some Big Brother fucking-esque show where he was, like, the guy making the challenges for people on the fucking reality TV show. He shouldn't have been in pro wrestling.
But the problem is he was never a good enough writer to write any TV, so...
I'm not saying you had to write good TV. You write road rules.
There's a reason the dude is doing a podcast these days, like...
Hey, wait a minute.
If he was good enough to write literally any TV other than pro wrestling, which he wasn't even good enough to write in the first place, but he got the job and got so many jobs that people just kept on hiring him. But if he was good enough to write TV, TV companies would have hired... There's never been more TV out there. Never more reality TV, never more non-fiction TV, never more scripted TV out there. If you can't get a writing gig if you're a writer now, you're just not a good writer.
Ed Ferrara got a gig.
Yeah, he's teaching creative writing at Full Sail, so that he's teaching...
Yeah, you know who isn't teaching creative writing at Full Sail?
The Full Sail is no longer associated with WWE, so Ed Ferrara is not teaching the WWE writers of the future anymore.
Well, he did for like the last 4 years, so maybe that's the problem.
That's where NXT went wrong. Hiring Ed Ferrara's kids. So yeah, Russo does this full promo, and in the match afterwards, John's like, you know what, Mike? After I saw Vince cut that promo, I know why you hate him.
Which is such a great realization. It took like literally 5 minutes.
And Mike Tenay is like, now you'll get why I wanted to quit. And Don, in like the most like charming self-deprecating thing, it's like, oh, you shouldn't quit. No one wants to see me do play-by-play. Bless Don. Don is an absolute treasure on these shows.
Someone has to be.
I will say, I did enjoy both of the Jarrett Killings matches. I don't think they're like blow away, you know, you've got to watch them, but I think they're the better heavyweight title matches they've had in this company's history so far.
I'd agree. There's nothing there that's blow away or even stuff you have to go seek out, except maybe just to see Jarrett winning his NWA title. But it was, they were fine heavyweight matches. Nothing in the heavyweight division is going to touch anything in the X division at this point.
At the very least, they're better than the Shamrock matches, so it has that going for them.
You could actually probably say, like, this is as far as, like, everything, maybe even the X division, that this month had the best title matches so far.
Yeah, as you mentioned. But even the X division had 2, like, Styles and Lynn bangers.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, and they had the red thing too. So, like, this could definitely have. You could even say that. You could probably say that all the titles had their, except for obviously Miss TNA, which wasn't defended.
Tug on your collar. So yeah, Jarrett beat Killings to win the title, and then to close off the story for the month, Jarrett defeated Killings in the rematch to retain the title, where he was not refusing to take the guitar from Russo again. So the story here, the tension is that Vince Russo wants to help Jeff Jarrett, but Jeff Jarrett doesn't want his help.
Wish that was real life.
Yeah, it is a weird inversion of, like, the real life situation where Vince Russo wants to help Jeff Jarrett. His dad doesn't want Vince Russo to help Jeff Jarrett, but Jeff Jarrett desperately wants Vince Russo to help Jeff Jarrett. They even did an angle after the match where Dave Meltzer reported, nobody knows this story, but they're figuring it'll get reported and everyone will know. Killings came back in the dressing room screaming that Russo was shooting on him by punching him for real in the ring. He looked to be throwing these windmill blows that were connecting, but he's not a trained worker. So they're even trying to do, like, these angles where it's like Killings is faking being mad at Vince Russo for, quote-unquote, shooting on him. But nobody cares.
This is such stupid shit.
It's always stupid. Like, all this, the worked shoot stuff is just not, it just does not understand pro wrestling. And even when they're good, even when there's a good worked shoot promo, it never lasts and turns into anything good. It's just like, you get the one, even if you liked Vince Russo on this second show, like, even if you're like, you know what, he cut that promo with fire and passion, it was well delivered. And if he said that to me, I wouldn't disagree, because it is well delivered. But it goes nowhere. It never goes anywhere. And they keep doing stuff like this.
I think it's because fans can immediately tell if something's genuine or not. And to do something like this with Ron backstage, people just aren't going to buy it. Like, when things come out from backstage and they're legitimate, that does get fan excitement. Like, how many years do people want fucking Riddle and Lesnar or Riddle and Goldberg just because they heard the backstage stories of Riddle? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's... not all the backstage stories are Riddle, but now it's like, if it's something that isn't genuine and it's something planned, especially with Russo on TV, you're gonna roll your eyes and not think it's real, because you have some modicum of critical thought. Oh, you want to talk about Mike Tenay's best call?
Yeah, we didn't even mention the Mike Tenay call where Vince Russo unmasks himself. Don West drops a "You've got to be kidding me," because of course he does, and then Mike Tenay delivers the line, "Oh shit, it's Vince Russo," with, like, the fury and anger of everybody watching, and I believe everybody in the back.
Did Tenay know?
Well, he's not listed among the people that did know.
So that could have been a very real... oh shit, it's Vince Russo.
A very personal, organic reaction from Mike Tenay to seeing Vince Russo on the television show that he has to work and call for the rest of his life.
Hilarious.
It's such a good delivery. It's such a good, it's the perfect response. You know, it's the time is just like, oh, could it be? You know, that kind of stuff. The inorganic, I'm feigning excitement, where Mike Tenay is just like, oh shit, it's Vince Russo.